Hi everyone, my name is Darrin and I'm an AKSI alumni from Delta Omicron's chapter over at CSULB. I'm also the founder of Engineer Careers, which is a career development organization that's dedicated to helping our communities tell their best story. I'm here with AKSI at Institute of Business Leadership to talk to you guys about personal branding and how you can leverage that to get ahead within your career. So I'll dive into the details of what personal branding is all about, how to discover your brand, and show you guys some tips to really capitalize on branding within your network. So some key takeaways I want to go over is how to define your personal brand, right? And once you define or defining what a personal brand is, and then discovering your own brand, using your branding to or using LinkedIn to brand yourself effectively, whether it be personalizing your LinkedIn profile or engaging on the platform. And I'll give you some examples of profiles and engagement that I think have been really successful within what I've seen. So first, I want to talk about what personal branding is all about, right? So, the first point is it's who you are, it's what you do, and why you love what you do, right? It's the image that people have of you when it comes to your personality, your work ethic, how you interact with others, and so on and so forth, right? When it comes to your career and your professional life, your personal brand is the sum total of all your experiences, and it's based on the value that you bring and the promises that you make to other people, right? So when you put this into perspective, or putting this into perspective, it's like when you're interviewing for a company, right? And they ask about your experiences. That's where you talk a little bit about what you can offer, what you can bring to the table, and this is how you sell yourself to recruiters and the companies that you really want to work for, right? And that all ties back to personal branding. A really great quote that I've come across is from Jeff Bezos, actually, where he talks about, or where he says, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? So really think about how you want to set your image up for when people are talking about you when you're not really within the conversation, you're not in the same room, right? And it's like how we're AKSI brothers, right? Even if we're not at an AKSI event or we're not at a meeting, outside in our day-to-day lives, if people know that we're associated with AKSI, that's how they are going to view us, right? And the same thing applies to our brand and how we want others to be, others to talk about us, or what they think about us, right? So in a sense where we're always brothers 24/7 on and off the clock, we're branding ourselves 24/7 on and off the clock, right? And at the end of the day, this is something that's within your control, right? So you want to think about what's important to you and how you want to tell your narrative and your story, right? Because that's pretty much what you want to establish all across the board when you're talking to other people. And think about what your brand is and what you think about yourself, right? How you want to portray your image, and then use that to really actively and consciously shape what your personal brand is all about. So this part talks about discovering your brand, right? So we know what a brand is. It's who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do, right? And to kind of start diving into finding your own brand, the first thing that I would do is start thinking about your passion, right? And to me, that's going to be the most important part because it lays down the foundation, right? And it could be something that you're passionate about, something that interests you, right? And pertaining to work, of course, or what you want to do within your line of work, right? This could be certain skills that you may have or that you're really good at, right? Or an idea or principle that you value, right? This all shapes what kind of work that you want to do in the future. For example, you could be really great at organizing your group projects, and you're a good leader and you love being able to lead the team from the very beginning of the project to the very end, right? So project management could be something that's something that you want to do. Or you could be really passionate about work culture, right? Really thriving within a company with that values its employees and makes a really great work environment for them. So being within employee relations could be a space that you want to get into, right? So think about what's important to you, right? What you're good at, things like that will help you discover what your passion is, because I guarantee there's going to be some alignment with between what you're good at and what you're interests are, and then there will come a role, right? So those are some things that you want to think about, right? And you want to think, and once you figure that out, right, you figure out your passion and what you want to do, you want to think about your priorities, right? And this is going to be really important because this is what's important to you, right? Because a lot of times we'll take on jobs that we're really not passionate about because we need the money or we just need to keep ourselves busy, which is totally fine. That's totally acceptable. But I think we're really fortunate or really privileged to be able to pursue a career path to which we're actually really interested or really passionate about rather than just working to work, right? So I'm a big advocate for chasing something that you want to do rather than just settling for a job that you can tolerate, because that by itself is going to be any other job any day of the week. So when you think about your priorities, right, and when it comes to your career, there's a lot of things that could be your priority. It could be your salary. It could be your work culture, right, the company that you work at, the responsibilities that you have within your role, the location, right? These are all priorities that are important to you. Like for me, when I was interning or when I was looking for internships, I didn't want to work for any place that was more than, let's say, 10 minutes away from where I lived, right? Because I hated commuting. I hated going on the freeway and staying or stuck in traffic for hours upon hours. So being locally sourced was something that was really important to me. And it was pretty hard, right? I found a lot of difficulties trying to find internships that were local because sometimes we had to make sacrifices or we had to work at places that are inconvenient to us, right? So knowing your priorities and what it is that you want to, or where it is that you want to work, or how, or what the company values as far as what their values are, is going to be important for you choosing where you work next, right? And if you have a hard time figuring out what your priorities are, that's completely fine. Some things that you can think about is, what's important to you, right? Is do you value your friends and families, right? Staying close to them. Do you want to live on your own, right? Do you want to have independence? Do you want opportunity to grow within your role or within your organizations, right? So all of these values, all of these values are going to be different, or they're going to be different among different companies, right? They're all going to have their own values. They're all going to treat their employees differently, right? So it's important to pick a company that aligns with what your values are, what your priorities are, because then once you find that match, right, it's going to be really, it's going to be a really good experience for you. And one thing to know that I did mention salary before, and I think a lot of people nowadays kind of diss on salary, or they talk down on salary, but in the end, like, money does provide source of income for you, right? It's how we pay our bills and things like that. So being financially stable is perfectly fine. We're all within the early stages of our career, so being able to find a job that can support what our needs are is totally a valid priority. So don't knock that off just because people say you should be working for causes that you really care about, or for companies that do good work, right? Being able to support yourself is really important too. So I just want you to remember that. And the last thing on this slide is do self-checks periodically, right? Priorities will change over time. That's something guaranteed. Maybe within our early careers, again, having a stable income is going to be really important. But let's say later down the line, when we have families, right, and we want to spend time with, let's say, your kids or your family members, then all of a sudden work-life balance is going to be really important to you. And that's where the shift is going to change, right? All of a sudden you're not really too passionate, or you're not really too, or you don't care about your salary, but you care about the time that you have off, right? So people or companies that have really good benefits when it comes to vacation and things like that, it's going to be important to you because it allows you to spend more time with your family, right? So by knowing what you value that's important to you, and checking what your values are every so often, that's going to really dictate which companies you work for, because they all value different things, right? And you'll see how they complement your lifestyle at the end of the day. So, big topic here, LinkedIn, right? So, as you guys probably know, LinkedIn is a social media platform, or it's a professional social media platform, right? And this is going to be something that I want to take a little bit more time to dive into. So, pretty much that's going to be the next big step for you to personally brand yourself, right? So what used to be a website where you would just go on and look for additional jobs other than, let's say, Indeed, has transformed itself into a social media platform, right? Especially with COVID happening right now, a lot of professionals, job seekers, and just recruiters are more active on LinkedIn. And since the beginning of COVID, the membership or LinkedIn's membership has grown from 675 million members all the way to 690 million members, and it has seen 26% increase in activity or sessions, right? So what does that mean? That means a lot more people are making LinkedIn profiles or spending time on LinkedIn. And that's going to be really, really great for you because now you have access to more people, more professionals, and have the ability to directly influence how you shape your career moving forward by engaging with them, right? So it all starts with your profile. And now most of us have a profile and most of us know what profile consists of, but you really want to make it unique to yourself, right? That's the point that I really want to get across. And it goes back to your personal branding, right? It includes your headshot, your summary, your cover photo. These are things that you want to personalize in order to get your brand out, right? And make yourself stand out. Now, there's a lot that goes into a LinkedIn profile, and I don't want to get into every single detail of it, but I'll show you some examples in the next slide so you can see what I'm talking about here. And once your profile is set and you're ready to network or show your network who you are, I really encourage all of you guys to start engaging, right? This could be commenting, this could be posting, this could be messaging people. And this is pretty much your bread and butter when it comes to meeting people professionally, right? If they work at a company that you want to work at, or if they're in a role where you that you want to be in, this is where you really have the opportunity to network with them. And that's the important thing that you that's the most important thing, right? And that's what LinkedIn is, one of the things that LinkedIn is built for, right? Networking. It's how you get your foot in the door. So by being able to engage, you create that warm connection with the person of interest, and then you can start with networking with them, right? And what's great about LinkedIn is that you don't have to be directly connected with them. You can literally be a third, fourth, fifth connection or whatever it may be, and you can still see things that they post or things that they comment on LinkedIn. So pretty much the opportunities are endless. You just have to spend time on LinkedIn to find out people that you want to network with. And then by engaging with them, you create that connection, and you'll be able to start the conversation much more easily than if you were to just cold message them and they don't really know who you are, right? So again, spending a little bit more time about LinkedIn profiles, and this is your typical profile, right? I pulled this off Google. You can see that he has a generic cover photo. That's the one that everyone gets when they first create their LinkedIn profile. His face isn't really looking at the camera, which is to me a big no-no. I always encourage people to use pictures of them looking at the camera, smiling. It shows that you're happy and that you're welcoming, right? He has just his position, right? SEO specialist. Usually they have a company name associated with that. But again, I want to go beyond that because having just your company name and your position is a little bit generic, right? So you want to go one step beyond that. And here, there are three brothers that I've worked with within my chapter where they did an amazing job with their profiles, right? Bridget, Eric, and Josh. So they spent the time to individualize, and you can see individualize their LinkedIn profiles, and you can see that each of them has their own cover photo. They have their own headline, and they all are using great pictures of themselves where they're looking at the camera, they're smiling. So it's really welcoming to anyone who visits their profiles, right? And you can see they have, although they may be different, they have sort of the same structure that goes with it, right? Especially when it comes to their headline, right? For Bridget, she's the president at my chapter right now. So her, mission statement is guiding students into the next steps of their career, right? She wants to get into the human resources space. So she put HRM within her headline as well. And she's an aspiring HR coordinator, right? So it gives a little bit more information about who she is and what she wants to do, which is really great for, let's say, if a recruiter were to go on her page, right? Same thing with Eric. He's spreading lessons and positivity through film because he's a filmmaker. He wants to get into creative development, and he's an aspiring film producer. He had a little fun with his cover photo. He made a reference to The Office, right, where he put a quote by Breen Brown, Breen Brown, and then he put his name right underneath it, right, by Eric Koshimizu. So I think that was really funny. And Josh, I really liked his too because he put a picture of himself in his cover photo, which is really amazing. He put human resources in bold words and put 6 attributes that are important to him, right? And again, he's striving to become the best human resources, best human resource, and he's building employee relations because that's something that's important to him and that's what he wants to do. So these are just examples. You don't have to follow it exactly for the structure for how it is, but the point is you want to spend some time to think about your cover photo, how you want to, or what kind of pictures you want to use, and your headline too, because that's going to entice the reader or the viewer to scroll through the rest of your profile and take a look at what you're all about, right? When it comes to your experience and things like that. So the next thing I want to show is how you engage on LinkedIn, right? These are 2 posts from 2 of my colleagues that I've networked with, one being Edgar and the other is Maria. So what I really love about these 2 posts is that Edgar posts, the way Edgar made his LinkedIn post is that he made a very welcoming message or welcoming question that allows or that invites people to connect with him, right? He asked, when was the last time you asked yourself the big question, right? He talks about taking a break from social media, and that's something that people can relate to, right? He kind of goes into, well, not kind of, but he goes into the details of the question, right? What sustainable impact could he have? And those are the kind of questions that he thinks about when he has time to himself, right? So that's something that he shared that he feels personally, important to him, and that's really important, and that's really great because a lot of times we see people just posting their successes, right? Maybe they just post like, hey, I just got this internship, or I'm really excited to announce that I got this internship at XYZ company, things like that. And it could be Debbie Downers, as much as we're happy for the people within our network, it could be Debbie Downers for us, or it could make us feel a little bit worse from ourselves. So you don't have to just strictly limit yourself to posting your quote unquote wins, but it could just be things like that where you post questions, you explain or you write about how you feel, things like that, right? And the same thing goes with Maria, right? She didn't really write about success, but she posted about anyone who would be willing to do an informational interview with her, right? She added some emojis, which I really like, to kind of vet who her demographic is. And she talks about what informational interviews are all about, right? So she goes into the details of that, and she tells people like, hey, if you're within social media, if you're in project management, if you're in higher education, drop a comment down below and I'd love to connect with you, right? And again, she invites people to engage with her, and I think that's really important because it allows you to open doors to meet people that you would never have met in person, right? So being able to have this capability online is going to be really important and could lead to your next role, right? And you can see at the bottom, they have their own hashtags too. So coming up with your own hashtags is going to be great and helps you brand yourself even further. So some things I want to keep in mind is, aside from LinkedIn, you want to check your other social media profiles, right? Like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, right? I just want you to be wary about your profiles because companies do vet their candidates sometimes through social screenings prior to hiring. So I'm not saying you have to delete anything that you may think would put you at risk, but just put your profiles in private if you want, right? Keep your work life and your personal life separate, and that way you'll eliminate any risk of not being hired or not moving forward within the interview process, right? And as much as you are creating your brand online, you also want to create your brand in person as well. And with COVID, that is an exception, right? You may be working in the office or maybe working in person, you may not. And if you are, just be worried. Like, you want to create great relationships at work, and you want to keep that relationship going because your not your employees, but your coworkers may end up at companies that you want to work for later on. So it's always good to have good connections there. And the same thing goes for your with your friend groups, right? You want to make sure you establish great relationships with them because, again, they may work somewhere that you want to work for. So being able to have a great relationship with your coworkers or in person is going to be just as important as online. And one last thing too, when it comes to engaging on LinkedIn or any sort of social media platform, is that you want to avoid one-word responses, right? When we engage, when we comment and we post things, we want to add value to the conversation, right? And when it comes to commenting, I always talk about adding value proposition when you're, replying to a post. A rule that I like to use is a rule within improv, right? It's called the yes and rule. I may not be completely right about this, but basically, anytime you add or you reply to someone speaking, you always say yes and or no and, right? So this allows you to further add value to the conversation. And the point is being like when you use one word replies like nice or great or good or like hey that's awesome or like really short responses, it doesn't allow the author or whoever posted it to reply back to you. They don't really know what to say, right? And it's especially harder because you guys are basically strangers. So being able to provide value or context to what you've read will really help drive the conversation and again start giving you that warm connection to that person. So just another tip for you. And that's pretty much it. So in a nutshell, that's personal branding. I know there's a lot more components to it, but within this session, I hope I taught you a little bit about, how what personal branding is all about, how you can find your own brand, how to utilize LinkedIn to your advantage, right? So hopefully that will help you out in your job search. I know it's really tough right now, but again, being able to be proactive about personal branding is going to really help you out very, very much. So with that being said, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I included my profile here, or a snippet of it, so you can see what it looks like. I also included my QR code. So you can, if you have your camera, just open up, or you have your phone, open up your camera app, just scan it really quick and it'll lead straight to my profile. But other than that, it was really great being with you guys, speaking at IBL. I'm really, appreciative of AKSI for reaching out to me and having me present for this topic because I think personal branding is really important. So with that being said, wishing you guys the best of luck and see you guys later.